I've been with the Royal Ballet for, I think, 12 or starting my 12th season now. And yeah, it's interesting kind of coming to this point in your career. I don't feel like I'm by any means approaching the end of my career, but it does feel like a significant portion of it has passed in a way. And I think at the same time, I've been very lucky to achieve a lot of my goals and ambitions. But of course, as an artist, you're always keen to set yourself new ones throughout that time and continue to do so. And so, yeah, at the moment for me, I'm always eager to be part of new productions, working with choreographers. I'm very excited to be kind of beginning the journey, I feel, as a choreographer myself. I don't feel like I have a kind of destination in mind for that, but it's been a really interesting foil to me for my own creative practice to have that as something that I'm doing alongside my dancing. And it's made me approach my dancing in a different way. I appreciate things in a different way, and working with people, collaborating with people has taken on a slightly different light because of that. For the most part, the choreography that I've done so far has been very small works. I would kind of call them like chamber works in a way, because a lot of it has been like duets. I've done a few for me and Mayara and myself, my partner, on and off stage, and that's been lovely, because I think very often with gala performances, which we're invited to quite frequently, you get a kind of like, it seems like this rotation of repertoire that everyone just does the same thing everywhere. And it's nice to bring a piece that's uniquely ours, that I've created, between the two of us, with a lot of her help as well. And it feels like those opportunities are nice, because people are always a little bit surprised to see a new work, to see something created by one of the dancers. I know that's not something unique, but it is a nice touch. And I think the work speaks to us in a not literal way, but in a kind of metaphorical way about relationship, and also our dancing, and how we trust each other, and have also grown together as people and artists. So that's really enjoyable. And then also at the same time, I'm being quite keen to like start exploring some more theatrical elements in choreography, which I think is something that I believe has come out in my work as a dancer as well. Like, I've always enjoyed the dramatic side of dancing, especially in my career. And I think that's something that I hope would be a big part of my choreography, and I hope to kind of keep on developing in a way. British choreography, maybe you could even say, has also like inherently got a connection to that, with Macmillan and Ashton being really incredible narrative choreographers in a way that, by comparison, I would say like Balanchine might be kind of generalized as more abstract works and stuff like that, whereas like the British theatrical tradition, I think, in a way kind of lends itself to this more dramatic approach. So that's something I'm interested in seeing how that develops in my own work as well. But also to be specific about upcoming opportunities in my dancing, I'm performing Female Garde for the first time in the coming weeks, and yeah, it's not so many debuts that I've got left, I would say, almost, in the Royal Ballet repertoire, which kind of sounds crazy to me to be saying, but it's true. And this is a piece that's obviously been a defining production of the Royal Ballet. It's very joyous. It's got that kind of fun pantomime comedic elements to it, which is I think quite a nice change up for me on stage. I'm like I say, I'm used to playing dramatic roles, etc. But this is a very fun-loving character, maybe a bit more like a Franz in Coppelia, as a reference point to works that I've performed before. And yeah, it's a tricky one for sure. Like, it's taken quite a lot of hard work to get it under my belt, and to feel confident. And I think my confidence will probably take another kick as well when I get those yellow tights on. But I'm also like eager to put myself out there and, just kind of surrender to the fun of it, to the joy of it. I think the ballet, although of course you need to, put your best foot forward and deliver all the technique in a way, I'm quite eager to also just bring a good energy and let the story tell itself in a way, rather than get panicked about, doing the cleanest footwork or something ever kind of thing. I think for me, it's been a real gift to have the opportunity to work in other ways than just as a dancer of the Royal Ballet. I think that position, especially as a principal dancer, comes with a great deal of respect, and also, you have a great deal of responsibility as well. But I've really enjoyed opportunities that I've had to work outside of that context, like for example with Matthew Bourne in his production of Swan Lake. That production particularly meant a lot to me, and I know also means a lot to a lot of men in the dance world, because of the impact it had on me as a young boy growing up, having watched it. But also just connecting with a different audience, and more recently, for example, in Quadrophenia that I was part of a Sadler's Wells production, which really brought in a very different audience. Again, a lot of people who are the Who fans were coming to see the show rather than dance fans necessarily. And yeah, I think, I'm very much interested in kind of, what you might call high art and taking art very seriously. I think anyone who knows me and has worked with me would see that like I have quite a serious approach to my work, at the same time as like having fun. But I really value the opportunity to work with different people and in different formats, because I think dance is a amazing, beautiful thing, and it's kind of like it emanates just from you as an individual. Like I'm always interested by the fact that like our instrument is our body itself, and just reconnecting with like you being able to put on a show just with yourself rather than having the entire trappings of the Royal Opera House, which is, one of the biggest theatres in the country, perhaps, even one of the bigger theatres in the world. I like kind of reconnecting to that in a way, and also I've done some kind of smaller performances, like I did a production with Kim Brandstrup at the Theatre Royal in Bath at the kind of studio theatre space called the Ustinov, which was only for an audience of about 150 or so, and that was dancing with Alina Kodjikaru, who's, an incredible international superstar and someone that I grew up looking up to. And there we were on this small stage, kind of sharing for a very intimate setting and audience, our work. And I think it just kind of gives a different tangible sense to your work. And I'm not a snob about, what is the right music for ballet to be seen to, or to, I don't know what is like the way that we should be presenting ourselves. I like to think that I can be versatile and just demonstrating that to people, perhaps even bringing people in that would feel more comfortable in a different setting to then maybe see my work in another setting, is something that I hope that gives access to people too as well. So yeah, for me that's been a really interesting part of my journey, and something that I kind of continue to crave in a way. Like I think being part of a big company is great, but I don't want my career to be entirely defined by that relationship with a theatre. The summer just gone was probably one of the busiest summers in my career, I would say. It was great in many ways, also challenging in many ways as well, but I took on quite a lot of work and some really new exciting work as well, which made it all the more rewarding. One of the highlights was the Nervi Festival, where I appeared twice, once with the Royal Ballet Company, dancing in Marguerite and Armand, which is one of my favourite Ashton roles, and something that I feel is quite close to my heart in a sense, not because of any special connection, other than feeling that it's a great honour to be dancing a sort of Nureyev hallmark piece like that, with an iconic score by Liszt to the B minor sonata, I believe. And yeah, it just feels like a work so charged with emotion and full of nuance and beautiful detail. I love that opportunity. And then following on from that, I was invited by Jacopo Belusi to also perform with him in the kind of international gala performance at the end of the Nervi Festival in Béjar's Songs of a Wayfarer. And that was, again, like quite a quite a fresh experience for me in a way. The last time I danced Beja was as a student in the Royal Ballet School, dancing Greek dances, and this it felt like quite a big departure in a way for me. I think I had you often have an idea about these choreographers growing up. You know, you see little bits of video here and there of someone doing Bolero from Paris Opera or Friedman Vogel or something along those lines, maybe things. So you build up like an idea, but sometimes it's a bit of a cliche. And I think with this work of his, it feels like a very intense and quite spiritual sort of journey of one man with the other kind of man or presence accompanying him on that journey or leading him along that journey. And it was a real eye opener for me, really, to be performing in a gala and tapping into a work with such depth. It's not to say that all galas are shallow evenings, but I think very often they're kind of defined by grand pas de deux, where people get excited by someone doing a lot of pirouettes, which I get excited by still as well. But this piece is about 20 minutes long, and it demands a serious amount of focus and attention, intuition and instinct, and a quite close and unusual chemistry, I would say, between the two male dancers on stage. And so that was a real treat for me. And Jacopo was a fellow school friend of mine, a couple of years above me, but we're actually quite a similar age. And he's been working in Hamburg for many years now. And I always think, having been to work in Hamburg as well, where we also performed Song of a Wayfarer at the Nijinsky Gala this summer as well. And the approach to the work in Hamburg is so sincere. It's so focused, and they really zone in on the work and give it a huge kind of honesty in a way. I feel like when the dancers from Hamburg go on stage, they're very open in their posture, in their approach, in their face. It's maybe there's angry moments or clouded things, but they really bear all on stage, and that's something I really admire and I think is very beautiful, because I like to think that although sometimes art is an illusion, it is rewarding as an artist to believe in it wholeheartedly as well, and I think they do that, and it helped me, I think, to raise my game in many senses. And then after that, me and Mayara ran off to Japan to perform at Bunker Kaiken, which is such a famous theatre, and the second you walk in there, you see the signatures all over the backstage walls of every dancer that's performed there, and it seems like every dancer that lived has been there, and it seems like quite a weight on your shoulders in a certain sense. And we made our first our debut performances, if you like, in Tchaikovsky Pas de Deux, which was a real departure, I would say, from some of the work that I'd been doing up to that point this summer. But it was a real blast, to be honest. Trying to match Mayara's energy is sometimes quite challenging. But I think the audience seemed to really respond to it and enjoy it. And we did 3 performances there in Japan, followed by another 2 performances, I think, in Chile. And that kind of was the culmination of our summer extravaganza of work. But yeah, other than that, there was a few other pieces and galas squeezed in here and there. And hopefully next summer will be not quite as busy, but at the same time, you do feel very grateful when you take stock of everything that's taken place during those few months. I'm really excited to be in December having an evening produced by Fundamentally Dance, which we're calling An Evening with Matthew Ball. And it's an opportunity for me to tell a little bit about my story, to give some insight into my creative practice. I'm going to be performing a little bit of some solos from one of my key bits of repertoire, if you like, in my career thus far, and then also sharing some of my choreography. So it's going to be quite a comprehensive evening where we look into many facets, I suppose, of my life as an artist. I don't know. Maybe in some senses it seems like a bit like an egomaniac, but at the same time, I love the opportunity to talk about my work. In fact, I think some dancers don't feel very comfortable talking about the work, and I appreciate that dance is a silent art form in a way. But I'm quite a thoughtful person, and I think as a dancer and a creative as well, like I don't really go into things just and kind of just do it for the sake of it. And especially like with my own choreography, there's usually a bit of a backstory or a whole collection of influences and inspirations behind it. And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity. I think I'll relish it in a way to kind of dig into these things a little bit and kind of, like not just kind of tell you all the secrets of what goes on backstage and things like that, but just actually be quite open and honest about how things come about. And sometimes I don't think it's necessarily you need to know exactly what the story is of a certain choreography to appreciate it. But I found in my own experience, when I read into the context of an artwork, when I find out more about a composer, when like what they were going through biographically in their life when they wrote something, that it only deepens your appreciation. And I'm a strong believer in that. So in a way, I think it'll be a really lovely chance to kind of like talk about the things that have driven me, the things that I'm learning about, the things that I'm still eager to learn about, and hopefully pass on some of that to my audience as well. The evening with Matthew Ball will be held at the Royal College of Music at the Susie Sainsbury Theatre, and it's going to be taking place on December the 14th. And hopefully we'll have some live music, we'll have some other dancers taking part to perform alongside me, and it'll be hosted by Kristen McNally, who's a really good friend of mine and a fellow Liverpudlian who I know will be able to bring out a few different sides of me. I think she's a really interesting person, as well as just a natural, warm, lovely human being. Looking forward to the rest of the season. There's some lovely moments in there. I think it's quite a juicy season for the company in general. After Le Fille Malgarde, there'll be a triple bill with the title Perspectives, and that is got a ballet by Justin Peck, Serenade by Balanchine, and also a new creation by Kathy Marsden, which I'm involved in. That's set to Benjamin Britten's violin concerto, and I probably can't like tell you a great deal about it, but it'll be a work for mainly male dancers, and it's a beautiful score to be working with, and we've been digging into the choreography and trying to find some kind of interesting, I would say, like new ways of moving. There's quite a lot of partnering between the male dancers and stuff like that, and it's the second time that I've been working with Kathy, so it's always nice to be coming back to someone that you're familiar with working with. And then in the new year, we also have some really fantastic pieces coming up. I'm very excited to be dancing with Mayara in Giselle. We have danced a few times together at work, but not all that often, in fact, especially in kind of big roles like this. And it'll be her debut as Giselle on the Royal Opera House stage. She's performed it previously in Brazil. And I think for me, it's a very special ballet. For many people, I know Giselle kind of holds a particular place in the heart. Following on from that, we also have Mayerling, which is, I think, probably my favorite role to dance. It's just such a interesting, unusual, dramatic anti-hero that you get to play, and it feels to me like every time you do it, it's going to be a fresh show. It's always an opportunity to find something in the choreography that's expressive of something other than prettiness and kind of beauty or harmony. There's a real psychological depth and some, sort of ugliness and kind of depravity, in fact. But it just invites you, I think, as a performer to think of choreography, to think of ballet particularly in a different way. Just what comes to mind is thinking of the way that you use the hands, the way that you partner the girl. It's really against how you would usually be expected to work. And for me, it just like kind of that moment where you sort of move beyond technique for the sake of looking nice or pretty or beautiful, which sometimes is a good thing, is very interesting though in this case, because you kind of transcend all that and you actually start trying to bear some deeper truths. You start trying to elaborate on the soul, on something really some inner turmoil that's quite deep and profound and poignant. Finally, we finished the season with a evening devoted to Paul Lightfoot and Sol Leon's work. And I grew up watching a lot of Netherlands dance theatre, which my mum used to take me to see in Manchester, actually, which was the closest theatre to have them when I was growing up in Liverpool. And yeah, I just adore their work. I think it's got such a beautiful, modern, slick aesthetic, as well as a kind of physicality and dynamic that works really well on ballet dancers' bodies, even though it's a kind of contemporary style. And fingers crossed I'll be in the casting for that. And I think it's going to be a really interesting moment for the Royal Ballet audiences, I think, as well, because I think their work is really quite hard hitting and also does lend itself to a kind of theatricality, which I think the Royal Ballet brings to its work in spades. I think it would be foolish not to think about what your career or what my life will look like after dancing. I very often think or at least I hope that when I stop dancing that I'll still maintain a close connection to my body, and I do practice quite a lot of yoga, and I don't know a great deal, but I'm very interested in Tai Chi and some other kind of physical practices which are quite holistic and have a more philosophical element to them as well, which I really enjoy, and I think invites kind of calmness and a slightly less rigid mindset, I would say, perhaps than ballet. Maybe sometimes I'd still do a bit of a ballet class or whatever, but I can also imagine kind of stepping away from dance, but never stepping away from my relationship with my body in that sense. But as a career, I think it's very hard to say, because at the moment, I'm really enjoying choreography, but I don't know what my life would be like as a choreographer. I remember creating the dream that I wanted to be a ballet dancer, and achieving it has been wonderful and a dream in itself, but it's not what I dreamed of, in the sense that the reality of that career is very different to what you imagined it would be 10 years previously. So here I am 10 years previously, from hopefully around the time I imagine I'll retire, getting into my early 40s. And I don't know exactly what lifestyle I want to pursue in a certain sense. And so that's why I kind of always hang back a bit from the question. I don't really see myself as a leader in the sense that, I crave, the sort of, that position in a group where I want to be leading people. But also I think I can be quite level-headed and have a persona that in some ways people trust and things. So I'm not saying I, would kind of back away from it all entirely, but it doesn't feel like something that I would doggedly pursue, like wanting to direct a company and stuff like that. And I think it's also a job that just comes with so much responsibilities. It's so time consuming and it's so difficult because you have to please such a wide spectrum of people who have very different ideas about what you should be doing in that position, that I would be very like kind of careful or mindful about like pursuing that in any serious way. Other than that, kind of thinking outside the box in terms of like more, I don't see myself as a teacher of dance, although I do like quite enjoy coaching from time to time and things like that. But I think my connection to the theatre is very strong, and so like I would like to stay in the theatre in some sense, or even in the art world in general. I'm quite passionate about like going to galleries and things like that, and bringing dance into different spaces, perhaps even in galleries or churches and things like where you wouldn't usually see it as an art form, because I think and again, it wouldn't be to like go and do Le Corsaire pas de deux, but I think sometimes disarming people when they see dance is a very useful way to get them into it, because very often people think like, oh, dance, I don't know anything about that. And I think the kind of proximity of seeing people in different spaces can be a very interesting way to get them to think about the body and its expressive potential. Is very interesting. Like, of course, we have so many beautiful theatres in this country, but I think something about the kind of proscenium arch is a bit like a television that makes you feel a bit like us and them between you and the dancers. So that's something that I'm kind of interested in exploring. And I know the kind of immersive theatre is a buzzword these days, but I don't think that means that there's not a lot of room for, exploration within that space still. To be had, rather than just kind of a marketing tool, if you like. And then other than that, I think sometimes life just takes you in the direction that it's meant to take you. And I think I'd like to be quite open if opportunities arise to explore talents or skills or experiences that I wouldn't have had in a dance profession, although the kind of profusion of experiences that I've had have been wonderful. So I'm kind of eager to see where life takes me, and also at the same time to have that kind of second career that dancers almost are forced into, because I think although it is sad, I think in a way it should be celebrated, because we pack in a massive amount of work into a relatively short space of time. And, of course, it's difficult to let go of that kind of your moment in the spotlight, shall we say. But at the same time, I think what you've gathered from that experience still means that you still have a lot left to give to others and to share with other people. So I think for me, what's important is that I still continue to do that, really.